Oh my gosh, joining us now, author and columnist for the New York Daily News, now an MSNBC contributor, Mike Lupica, as well as political analyst and MSNBC contributor Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, who recently wrote a piece for NBC News entitled "Too Bad Trump Chose Bad Hombres Over Big Tents," which reads in part this: for the last 15 or 20 years, the Republican Party has recognized that they need to open up the partisan tent and bring in more voters. Until recently, one of the groups the GOP had been targeting was Latinos. But enter Donald Trump, who took a completely different path to primary victory. Instead of broadening the Republican coalition, he subscribed to an alternate theory: bring back disenchanted white voters into the fold. More specifically, he implemented a divide and conquer strategy to win the presidency. The election is not over yet. Until then, we can't definitively say whether the big tent or the divide and conquer strategy was the best one for the GOP. One thing's more certain: even in the off chance that the divide and conquer strategy wins this time around, the reality is that it's demographically unsustainable. It kills itself at some point, right?
Yeah, Mika, 10 years ago, we had a Republican Party that had its sight set on Latinos, on saying that this is our path forward. This is the way we're going to keep the White House, because George W. Bush was in the White House. So I think, how did we get to this point? Not only how did we get to the point where we're not focusing on broadening the tent, but where we're talking about bad hombres. That was the one Latino outreach I saw from Donald Trump, is saying hombres. and we're talking about rapists and drug dealers, where the truth of the matter is, if you want to combat illegal immigration and drug trafficking, you need to talk about the demand. It's not about building walls or putting more enforcement mechanisms. It's saying to the employers, you need to stop hiring these folks.
You know, we were talking about this before he came on today. I actually thought, not that George W. Bush had a lot of good moments in his presidency, and bills are still being presented for things that he did. His best moment was the mosque moment, okay? When he basically said, cut it out, okay? That was his, a moment that became his shining hour. And is Hillary Clinton even going to be allowed to govern in that way when she gets elected? I'm worried about November 9th. We've obsessed about November 8th. Are we still going to be gridlocked? Or is she going to be allowed to be like the person you reference a lot, which is LBJ?
Yes,
because who would have ever thought, with his own political history, that he was going to be the Voting Rights Act? And that's what he became.
Well, there you
Elise,
go.
talk about the demographic doomsday that the Republican
Well, if there's one more cycle where the Republican Party can rely on white male voters, I would be shocked. It's a party that's willed itself into extinction by this stage in the game. You know, you're going to have Ted Cruz coming around again in 2020 trying to still beat this hammer that this is how we can win. But I don't see a future unless we need to look at the George W. Bush model, quite frankly. And Trump could have learned a lot about how George W. Bush reached out to Latinos.
Well, and at least what's so crazy is, I remember right after Romney lost in November of 2012, Trump did an interview with Newsmax, I believe, and he said, you know, Romney really messed up criticizing Latinos and talking about self-deportation. So there was a moment when Trump recognized the importance of reaching out, but he went another way.
Michael Steele, same question. Demographic doomsday.
Oh my goodness, Lord, this is this. Dude,
Are we here?
We need to get him some
how do you spell demise? No, the reality is, I think, a stark one. It has been in front of the party for quite some time. When they beat back George W. Bush in his second term to really begin to open up, create a rapprochement, if you will, with the Hispanic community to lay down some positive tracks, that was a signal, almost a death knell in some respects. Then when Reince and the autopsy said, emphasizing we want to do this, and then just turned away from it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you now recover. How do you look Hispanics in the eye and go, oh, we didn't mean that?
Well, I know, and that's where...
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know. Well, okay. Well, I'm not sure how Republicans got past that point, but he did get an endorsement from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Lupica, stop laughing, but Sheldon Adelson writes this. I'm sorry, the Review-Journal writes this. Yes, Mr. Trump's impulsiveness and overheated rhetoric alienate many voters. He has trouble dealing with critics and would be wise to discover the power of humility. But neither candidate will ever be called to the dais to accept an award for moral probity and character. And we are already distressingly familiar with the Clinton way, which involves turning public service into an orgy of influence peddling and entitlement designed to line their own pockets, precisely what a disgruntled electorate now rises up to protest. Mr. Trump represents neither the danger his critics claim nor the magic elixir many of his supporters crave. But he promises to be a source of disruption and discomfort to the privileged, back-scratching political elites for whom the nation's strength and solvency have become subservient to power's pursuit and preservation. And Lupica, I do think that that's the scratch that he's itched. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, without a doubt. But going back to what Elise said, can we all agree that this probably will be the last time that you think you can become elected president of the United States by only speaking to the League of Angry White Guys?
No.
Yeah, I agree
Not
with
for
you.
the
Go ahead and still
Republicans.
try.
No.
I thought,
They'll continue to do it.
yeah.
Then they'll continue to go down the rabbit hole.
At the presidential level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't know how Michael Steele, for example, when we started this show, you were saying this is not about us, it's about the voters. When I was asking why it took so long for people to sort of say, you know what, Trump doesn't work on the Republican side, why didn't, when he kind of insulted the entire Latino population, why didn't it stop there?
Yeah, I think that was the defining moment that was missed, because you had an autopsy report that you could have put in front of Donald Trump. No, this is who we are. This is the way we're going to go. That didn't happen, and Donald Trump took advantage of it.
All right, well, that does it for us this morning. Stephanie Rule will be picking up the coverage right here on MSNBC.